to FemVids Ultimo. I'm Alicia Evans.
And I'm Shan Rawls. Today we're going to be telling you about four great things, four things that happened in September.
Alright, so the first of the four was the PIDF Summit, which happened the first couple of days of September, last month. Well, apart from me being sick for the first day, the good bit about it was I saw all of the Pacific heads of states way in the front. We were kind of sitting at the back, so all I heard was their voices, saw the back of their heads, but they did talk about the need to get this kind of concrete declaration formed and making sure they did make waves in Paris for the COP21 meeting in December.
Aside from all the amazing heads of state, civil society and private sector was also in the room, something almost unheard of because not only were they in the room, but they could also make interventions. At any point, interventions were able to be made, which meant that while we were seeing the back of the heads of Pacific states, we were also seeing the side of the heads of some of our civil society partners, as well as people from the private sector we almost never see in the same room as us. One of the products of the three-day summit, which kind of stands ahead of the COP21 meeting in Paris later this year, was the Suva Declaration, kind of the Pacific standpoint of those attending the PIDF Summit about what they want to see for COP21. Not only were women in it once, we were in it twice. Unfortunately, only in it because civil society tried their hardest to make sure that women were included, and having to deal with competing for space between youth, disability, and generally everything. Gender. It's apparently difficult to understand.
So the fact that we also had to make interventions, I didn't even know what an intervention was, but I stood up, raised my hand, they gave me a microphone, words came out of my mouth. They included women in the Suva Declaration, so congratulations, 50% of the Pacific. We did our job.
One of the other key events of September of Ultimo was International Day of Peace, one of the biggest events for our network nationally as well as regionally and just generally internationally. Partnerships for Peace was the theme, dignity for all, and just kind of reiterating the fact that peace means very many different things to very many people. But for those systematically excluded, it does mean proper development, inclusion at all levels of decision making, and just generally embracing the diversity that we are.
Okay, so the International Day of Peace event that we had, it was pretty cool because we had all of our rural conveners come into Suva and talk about the women that they represented, so they weren't just speaking about themselves, they were speaking about the women from their networks who are also representing other women from the communities. So kind of like a lot of women were represented on the International Day of Peace, which was filmed by Fiji media people. I saw our network people on the TV, I took a picture of it on my phone, I tweeted it, so that was awesome. It was really good to see the women speaking in the presence of the head of the EU delegation, Ambassador Jacobs, as well as representatives from DFAT. I don't know her name, it's okay, but she was there, she was nodding kind of, I was sitting right behind her and she was nodding kind of emphatically to what Fani Lomani was saying from our Tavua networks. I was really impressed with Fani. I've heard a lot of things about how she's grown over the kind of years that she's been with Family Pacific, and this was just another platform for her to advocate on the message of International Day of Peace, as well as what the women were saying from her area as well.
One of our other significant events, Ultimo, was our September Partners meeting, following immediately from our commemoration of International Day of Peace nationally. It was a time for, as Alicia said, to bring our rural conveners together to strategize for the next year and maybe even beyond, particularly given that we were localizing the Sustainable Development Goals, which weren't adopted until the weekend following our September Partners meeting. Incredibly impressive for these rural leaders, rural women leaders, to take up the international development agenda and really localize it. What does, for example, having quality access to education at all stages of life actually mean? What does it mean, for example, to actually have water? It's not boreholes, it's not wells, it's actually having piped water and a reliable source at that.
Alright, so Women in Peace, a pretty major part of what we do here at Family Pacific. Women, peace, together, development, security. Some people don't really understand that concept, but that's what we do. So the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, two of them kind of feature women and peace. So we're trying to ensure that even though we do have these two standalone goals, that in the rest of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, that there is a gendered focus kind of throughout it, because there's no point just having women and women targeted in just one goal, and then you leave them out of economic development, or you leave them out of trying to eradicate poverty and hunger or access to health. So that's what we're trying to do, making sure that gender is everywhere, because it is.
And finally, gender is everywhere, yes, and gender might be a very key sort of thing happening, given that the General Assembly has actually adopted a new resolution that will increase the accountability, transparency of the appointment of the next UN Secretary General. FemTalk 89 FM spoke to the director of the 1 for 7 billion campaign, which is really a push for these kinds of things. Transparency, visibility, accountability, and actual selection criteria for the Secretary General. Because without these international bodies actually taking up the monikers and actually incorporating things like democratic values and whatnot, then how are member states actually supposed to have faith in these kinds of values as well? So there is not only the possibility, following a selection criteria and otherwise, of there going to be more strong candidates for the Secretary General next year or the year following, but the potential for women to actually get in there and represent women on a global stage as the head of the United Nations. And so if you want to listen to that radio podcast, it is available on our Mixcloud account along with a whole bunch of other stuff. Interviews with civil society partners, who makes the news, programs from our rural networks, and otherwise.
So that's pretty much it for our September Ultimo. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Alicia Evans.
And I'm Sean Rose.